My dear Astro family, today we will be speaking about Mercury retrograde in the sign of Libra, which, by the way, will be shifting back into the sign of Virgo towards the second part of September. Now, if you hear my dog is fighting in the background, well, that's typical Mercury in Libra type of possibility because they have to do the big talk, right? And then sometimes it turns into a little bit of a fight, so don't be shocked about it. But hopefully they will be calm. Now, these are the last days of my promotion in regards to my 30% reading and the 40% on webinars and courses. So if you want to grab it, then you have got a couple of days left. So let's get started with this Mercury retrograde because this will be an interesting one. Of course, like all Mercury retrograde. Let's start with the fact what a Mercury retrograde is actually. So Mercury retrograde is when kind of like a retrograde motion happens when a planet appears to be moving backwards, okay, from the point of the Earth. But actually, it is not moving backwards. It just appears that way. So Mercury does a retrograde motion approximately 3-4 times a year, and it lasts for about 3 weeks. So this is something which is not necessarily an uncommon phenomenon overall, but a retrograde planet always indicates that we're going to have to revisit something. We're going to have to go back in the past. We're going to have to go down on a memory lane and kind of like looking at certain things from a different angle. Now, I would say there are kind of like 3 parts of a Mercury retrograde. One of them is actually when it's stepping into a shadow zone. A shadow zone is kind of like the degree where it's going to return while it's moving backwards. So where it kind of like starts and also where it ends its retrograde period. So Mercury went into the sign of Libra at one point, right? And then it reaches the maximum degree, which he's going to cover till the retrograde motion happens. That is somewhere around 8 degrees. And then it decides to move backwards, and then it's going to go back somewhere to 24 degrees of Virgo. So while it's walking between 24 to 8 degrees, once it goes direct, that's kind of like a shadow period. So pretty much we can feel the Mercury retrograde zone till about 17th of October, even though Mercury will turn direct around the 2nd of October, depending on where you are. So I hope that makes sense what a shadow period is. We also have got kind of like a stormy period in each retrograde period. And the storm period would be when Mercury is extremely slow. And that is something to do with under 40 minutes per day, okay? When it's only moving about 40 minutes per day. So this year, that's going to be happening sometimes between 3rd of September till about the 15th of September. And then finally, we're going to have between 29th of September till about 6th of October. So we can really feel those periods of time quite intensified. So that, and then the third phase of Mercury is, of course, when it's actually direct. So Mercury will be starting its retrograde period on the 9th of September or the 10th of September, depending on where you are. And it's going to be actually stationing direct on the 2nd of October. So the retrograde period starts in a Libra on 8 degrees, and then it's going to go back into the sign of Virgo on the 23rd of September. And then basically going to spend there a little bit of a time before actually it goes back into the sign of Libra, where it's going to be actually stationing direct. So that would be kind of like the basics, what first of all we need to understand. Now, the fact that the planet is starting its retrograde motion in one sign and then finishing in another, it also indicates that there is going to be kind of like a shift of energy happening in the middle of that retrograde period. When Mercury is actually retrograde, what's interesting about it is that it's going to be making a conjunction to the sun. So either it's going to be making an inferior conjunction or a superior conjunction. But this time around, I'm not going to be actually talking about that in the video. I might be doing a separate one because that is going to reveal further information for us about what to expect in the next few months, really. Now, what's also interesting is that Mercury started its shadow period on the 20th of August. That's the day when Mars moved into the sign of Gemini, which is of course ruled by Mercury. Another interesting factor to consider here is that Mars actually started its shadow period also at the end of August, and pretty much that's when Mercury started its shadow period as well. And these two will be in mutual reception in October. So it will really peak. It will really peak, and this Mercury is connected to Mars, kind of like I would say, imagine them two being in conjunction. And this is how we are going to be trying to interpret this Mercury retrograde this time around also. So as we said, Mercury went into the sign of Libra, which is, what is Libra? It's about equality, justice, concerns about connection, war, peace, but also something to do with relationship. And Mercury is about our way of thinking, the way we communicate, the way we process information, the way we collect data and information, kind of like how we use our brain, basically. So it's very possible that we're going to be seeing a lot more talk about equality and justice. Maybe court cases are going to be popping up on newspapers, which is very much Mercury. But as I said, imagine this Mercury and Mars as being conjuncted this time around. What it kind of talks to me about is that there is a possibility that some people are going to go on demonstrations, there is going to be strikes, maybe in the travel industry, because Mercury represents buses, taxis, trains, trams, and all those type of public transports, basically. But also Mercury rules over currencies too. So we might be seeing some changes in regards to the currencies. We do know that what happened is that the currencies have been increasing significantly compared to the smaller ones. So, and of course, plenty of complaints about it because the prices are going up as well, and people don't necessarily know what to do. So we might be seeing that actually the currencies will start dropping down a little bit, or at least there is going to be some attempt or negotiations to kind of make this a little bit more bearable. Now, because Mercury retrograde starts on 8th degree, which is Capricorn's what? So that's something to do with governments, something to do with construction. Also, it could relate to political activism, political debates, and all those type of things. So what we might see is that there is going to be some type of political negotiations between nations. Typically, because it's Libra, it would talk about foreign nations. So such as, I don't know, Spain is talking to India or those type of things, what I'm talking about. And they might be actually talking about how to fix currencies or how to do some type of transportation of goods, for instance, because Mercury is the merchant or whatever way we pronounce the words. So it's about how to transport something into a different country, for instance. But also, you know, we might be seeing that, I don't know, one country is selling, for instance, their buses to someone else, because Capricorn represents the second-hand stuff. Capricorn represents something to do with cheap things. So that's something like that also is possible. Now, on a personal level, Mercury retrograde is kind of like part of a cycle. Whatever happens to us 11 months before can be expected to return in one way or another, which we're going to have to revisit. What exactly does that mean? So basically, the retrograde Mercury usually finishes on the degree where 11 months later, the Mercury retrograde starts. Okay, so maybe somewhere plus minus 3 degrees, I would say. So last year, about 11 months ago, we're talking about October 2021, we had a Mercury retrograde, and that was meant to be finishing its retrograde motion somewhere around 8 degrees of Libra. Okay, so of course that got triggered for you, and that happened also, 11 months before. So this is kind of like a cycle. So firstly, I would like you to think about what was going on in your life in 2021 October, because that might be revealing to you what to expect from this Mercury retrograde. Now, for instance, me on a personal level in 2021 October, briefly, I moved to Cyprus, and I was there for about 1.5 months. And then after I decided to move to Istanbul. So this time around, actually, I'm going to India for a month because I'm gonna do there an Ayurvedic retreat. Um, we will see how it happens. My plan is once I return, I might go to Turin, which is in Italy, because I've got a beautiful relocated chart there. So I'm considering doing that, but we will see what future, brings for us. I'm a little bit dreading the winter season, and I always have issues with winter. I don't necessarily like that. But anyway, we will see what happens. So this is how you're going to be correlating. Of course, you might want to be looking at, okay, what house does that Mercury fall into? As well as you might want to be looking at what houses Mercury rules in your natal chart. And that's how you can get a little bit of a clearer picture of what to expect about this Mercury retrograde. Now, because we do the same in mundane astrology also. So what I did was I Googled the major headlines of 2021 October to kind of see what the newspapers were talking about the most, or online portals. So here are some of the topics. Energy prices started going up by 178%. That was the biggest headline of the month. So there is going to be loads of talks about energy prices. And because there is Mars there, we should expect some frustration around it. I mean, Mars is involved here. Farmers were on strike in certain countries because they felt like they couldn't complete their job, or they couldn't do the competition against others. So shall we expect some type of strikes again? Most probably, yes. Poland was one of the first one to announce the highest inflation ever happened to them. So inflation definitely going to be a topic. The expo in Dubai reopened, so I'm just wondering if something is going to reopen, or they're going to announce something, kind of like a worldly event, really. In the music industry, Taylor Swift had her 10th album, and that was a completely new one. So maybe we're going to be hearing about Taylor Swift a little bit more. And also, there were rumors around the death of the Queen, too. So there might be rumors around this type of topic, maybe about someone else, maybe about her, God knows. But we can expect some topics. Also, there was the judge who ordered Twitter to hand over to Elon Musk 9,000 accounts they used in 2021. So that's kind of very interesting again, because probably there is going to be some topic around Mr. Elon or Twitter. Most likely this will be coming up. And maybe there is going to be some negotiations. Shall we sell Twitter? Shall we not sell Twitter? Am I buying it? Am I not buying it? And all those type of things. So this is how you can actually think about what's going to happen to you as well. And this is the reason why I usually recommend to keep an astrological journal, because obviously that's going to help you remember a lot. And that's going to actually help you to prepare for the new cycles ahead of you too. Now, of course, because it starts in the sign of Libra, which is all about relationship. So you might need to be revisiting the communication department in your relationships with your loved ones or with your business partners, but overall with anyone really. You might have to have the talk with someone special in your life, because maybe something is not going too good, or maybe something you guys have already spoken about, but maybe it hasn't really sunk in yet. So we're going to have to bring that topic up again. Actually, because Libra does talk about legal matters, you might get into a legal matter because, I don't know, you sent a letter or someone else sent a letter, or there was a scam going on, or they sent you a misleading information on email, or it can be travel related, accident related legal matters also. Because Libra does represent the dispute, kind of like a war zone, if we can call it that way. So that's also a possibility which might be coming around. Another thing which actually I was thinking about is that, especially if that Mercury or the Venus somehow connects to your fifth or the seventh house, but you might start thinking about being in the relationship again. You know, it's actually possible that with Mercury retrograde in the sign of Libra, someone will return from our childhood, you know, or from our young ages, till about age 25, it would say, by the way, who we fancied or loved or we went out with. And then all of a sudden we bump into those people on the street. And maybe that's kind of like a closure for you, because you're going to have to revisit some of those feelings you had towards that person. Now, what I've also noticed in regards to this Mercury retrograde, that the most important aspect it's going to have is an opposition to Jupiter, because this Mercury Jupiter opposition going to be happening 3 times. So the very first one is on the 3rd of September, and then we're going to have one on 18th of September, which is going to be quite prominent because both of them are squaring Pallas Athene also. And then we're going to have one more around the 5th of October. So what is Mercury and Jupiter opposition about? Because this is very highlighted for us. Um, very highlighted for us. Obviously, Jupiter is about travel, and also it rules the law. So something is gonna pop up, you know, on the on the horizon in regards to legislation. Both of them are travel planets, so it might be about travel. Again, can we travel, can we not travel, and all those type of things. But also for me, Mercury and Jupiter is really much about uh, the style of communication can be quite bold, can be kind of like giving us stories, like short stories, or it could really talk about kind of like scams as well. One of the picture you would see in regards to Mercury and Jupiter on in the symbol on card is that somebody is actually playing this trick on two people. They have to be choosing, you know, picking the what's going on underneath the cup. Where is the something, the coin, for instance. So that type of stuff, which actually belongs to Mercury and Jupiter. So scam issues definitely will be on the horizon in the next couple of months. Also, it can indicate a lot more adventurous mind. It can indicate that you're going to have loads going on your mind. Maybe you are going to be too interested in many things, and then you're going to have to organize those. So we do need to be attentive a little bit more to details, which Jupiter struggles with. It might get easier after the 23rd of September when Mercury moves back into the sign of Virgo, where, of course, Mercury is extremely organized. Also, Jupiter and Mercury could talk about exaggeration, trying to say something big, and then, you know, somehow it, you know, it's just kind of hits or slap us in a sense. It's very easy to make judgments on others. It's very easy to be opinionated about something. And of course, because it's in a communicative sign, Libra, we're going to have to be just aware that what we see in front of us might not be the truth. It's about being hungry for knowledge as well. So it's about having a wider range of skills. So it might want you to look at your skills, your talent. Do you need to practice something a little bit more? Do you actually kind of have to be brainstorming with someone, putting your heads together? Maybe it's about learning some reasoning skills, you know, how I can convince others. But But the danger with Jupiter that sometimes what we do is that we go overboard with it. We try to push our opinions across way too much, and we might not listen. And Mercury rules your kind of like hearing. It's kind of like a hearing aid, really. It's about understanding of how to communicate efficiently. Whatever Jupiter touches, it actually magnifies those. So another picture I usually look at Mercury and Jupiter is that Mercury is the student and Jupiter is the teacher. And the teacher is kind of like looking down on the student, not necessarily understanding that I've got something to learn from the student also. Okay, so what can I learn from others? This could also be a topic which actually it brings up, but this would be more on the Virgo side of things. Because what's Virgo? It's the innate capacity to be aware of the road ahead, where we are in the journey versus where I could be if I improve my skills. So you might need to be having a chat, let's say in your relationship or with your business partner. What's the vision here? Virgo Mercury is humble. Mercury here knows that I have to improve, but Jupiter is actually giving that faith to that Mercury, that Virgo Mercury. And why I like Mercury connected to Jupiter, because we are not as pessimistic anymore. Mercury Virgo is kind of like about medicine. So it gives Jupiter the possibility to ground and to analyze data more thoroughly. It really gives strong work ethic. So while Mercury is in the sign of Libra, we focus on relationships quite a lot, business partnership, negotiations, and contracts. And then Mercury, when it goes back into Virgo, we might start having a lot more strong work ethic because we put the plan together. Also, this is about perfectionism. So kind of like it can give us the idea, oh, if I do things in a very good way, nice way, let's say Libra, then I'm gonna get noticed. Okay, so there is a key word here, probably about simplicity, which this Mercury kind of needs to practice, or having a can-do attitude as well. And Jupiter is just really kind of giving the higher standards here. So it's very easy to have expectations towards others. But that Mercury in Libra is really talking about, but I need to communicate these expectations in a fair way. If I'm expecting something from you, I'm meant to be expecting the same from others. Otherwise, people are going to be, kind of telling us that we are two-faced or we trick them into something. And Mercury is the planet of trickster. However, Mercury is playful rather than trying to cause a problem. It's also possible that you're gonna have some work training coming up, for instance. That's a possibility. Also, it might be about that I'm struggling to express my thoughts a little bit because actually kind of having an inner dialogue, Mercury in Libra, so before actually I try to sell my stories, I'm gonna actually revisit those stories in my own head as well. Maybe you preparing for an interview. We need a little bit more of a preparation. Because with Mercury retrograde, ooh, do not sign a contract. I don't like that type of things. Okay. Because if you 11 months ago, there was nothing going on contractually, you can sign a contract. I don't think it's a problem. Does it mean that because Mercury goes retrograde approximately about almost 4 months a year, three months for sure, I'm not going to look for a job for 3 months? So don't think about it that way. Okay. Mercury rules over sales, marketing, media, publicity, sales. Oh, I mentioned sales already. So it could talk about we wanting to sell someone and there is that contractual agreement going on. But also it could talk about that I'm actually connecting with a social media marketing manager, for instance, because I'm in a need of one. That's also a possibility. Okay. So for me, this is about principles, looking at the principles, not just about the facts also. It's about being witty, approaching a topic from a witty point of view. Just pay attention not to take on too many subjects or kind of like swing in between subjects, because there could be misunderstandings, and maybe a few weeks later they're gonna ask you about the same topic because they didn't get it at the first place. Don't try to over communicate something, okay? Don't try to exaggerate a piece of information. And it's very easy to have the feeling of being right about something, because with Jupiter and Mercury, it really increases the moral code. The moral compass gets very, very high here. I also feel like that Mercury, especially, with combination combined with Jupiter, it really gives us this jack of all trades type of things, right? I want to know a little bit about each subject, right? It's kind of like a student who is going to take 100 pages of notes, but maybe they are not able to put together their essay, right? So we're going to have to learn a little bit being theoretical and practical as well at the same time. Yeah, so that's one thing I wanted to mention. Now, there is another interesting thing. So I mentioned that Jupiter will be in the picture 3 times with this Mercury. And on the September 18th, we've got Pallas Athene also. And we're going to have a T-square going on there. And Pallas Athene is about wisdom. It's about the warrior energy within us. Pallas Athene is always here to protect and always here to win. So for me, this is about the winning mindset. And how do I have the winning mindset, or do I not have the winning mindset? So I kind of feel like there is going to be some uh, legislation changes, or because Jupiter can represent universities and studies and travel matters. These, I think, will be a hot topic in the near future. Okay, another thing which I kind of wanted to talk about is because I looked at whether there is an asteroid or a fixed star on that 8 degree of Libra, and we do have got, and it's called Anubis. So I wanted to talk about Anubis a little bit because I think it might be giving us a little bit extra information to it. Anubis is by the way, its astrological number is 1912, and its name is spelled A-N for November, U, B for baby, I-S. Anubis 1912. So Anubis was an ancient Egyptian goddess, and it rules over funerals. He was the protector of graves. So for me, very interesting, by the way, that Mercury goes retrograde straight after we're gonna have a full moon happening in the sign of Pisces. But the next lunation is actually gonna be conjuncting Mercury retrograde also. So for me, this is about leaving something in the past, kind of having a funeral ritual and moving towards the future. And that Mercury invites you to kind of go down on a road. Also, Mercury retrograde can be looked at as from coming down from the skies going to the underworld. The history behind him is that he was the only god who had the ability to travel between dimensions, and he had the ability to bring the dead back. So I find it extremely exciting that it's conjuncting Anubis, which is about funeral, graves, um, kind of like the reservation of the body, the resurrection type of energy to it. It's about life and death situations. So, it's interesting that last year someone said that the Queen, was dead. There was that rumor. I kind of feel like there is going to be another rumor like that, something like that. But also, this Anubis was known as the guardian of the scales, right? And that's Libra. which is about weighing pros and cons about something, right? And what happened here is that during these ceremonies, actually, they weighed the heart of the deceased person. And if it was lighter than a feather, then actually it indicated that the soul was worthy, okay? And then it kind of got blessed. So Anubis, which is death, endings, and transformation. It could also talk about people who work in a hospice, for instance, or they risk their life. They risk their life, like a firefighter, for instance, Mercury in Libra on an Aries drought, for instance, okay? It could talk about morticians. It could talk about, yeah, kind of like ceremonies and so forth around death. So something related to death is very emphasized for me in this chart. Let's see how it plays out. So as I mentioned, on the 23rd of September, Mercury goes back into the sign of Virgo. So another interesting thing which I was thinking about the other day. Mercury rules two signs, Gemini and Virgo. Gemini is the masculine expression of Mercury, and Virgo is the feminine expression. Now, the fact that Mercury goes back into Virgo, but we do have got Mars in the sign of Gemini, it really talks about the balance of the feminine and the masculine energies. Always imagine Virgo, Mercury as the puzzle. It's kind of like finding that last piece of information and then kind of putting that in the right place. So I kind of feel like that this Mercury retrograde is about finding a missing piece of information, what you have been looking for, and that might connect to your relationship. Maybe you're gonna have a chat with your partner about something, right? And so forth. It for me, because there was a Palasatini involved here too, which is about spotting patterns. When Mercury moves back into the sign of Virgo, it's going to be a lot easier to see these patterns. Mercury retrograde is, for me, Libra is the very first sign which becomes kind of visible from a house point of view, where we're going to have to put ourselves out there. Okay. So watch out, because it's very easy not to get along with people. It's very easy to focus on people's kind of mistakes, what they make. It's very easy to judge them. Okay. So we're going to have to be aware that, if we have got these tendencies to do, then that's the problem. But also, Mercury in Libra is about thinking about how to find balance in our life. Don't only look at your Libra cusp, look at Aries as well, because you're going to have to balance something out there where there is Jupiter, right? So that's why this Mercury and Jupiter aspect is happening 3 times. We get a little bit of an extended period of time to balance those houses out in our chart. It's very easy to focus on things, what's fair and what's not fair, and we might be a little bit louder about it. And typically, Mercury in Libra retrograde would indicate that we do need to know that life is not fair. Things are happening for a reason, and we're going to have to accept that. So this is pretty much the energy I kind of wanted to describe you. Just make sure that when Mercury goes back into Virgo, because Virgo is the exalted and the ruled sign by Mercury as well, right? So that has got that scrutinizing energy. Virgo is extremely productive. It's a sign of work and service industry. So it's very possible that, we demand a lot, or people are demanding a lot more from ourselves. And kind of it feels like impossible. Okay. It's kind of like a little bit of an engineering sign as well, putting things together, taking things apart. So being real about something, you know, whether I'm demanding perfection and all those type of things, can be a huge topic. And the retrograde actually ends by opposing Neptune in the sign of Pisces. So the danger of that is that we can get easily mentally drained. And that's worth to know. So try to calm your mind. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon with another video. Bye-bye.